Okay, now let's move on to topic 4. So topic 4 is about data collection and sampling. And this is from Keller's chapter 5 and Doan and Seward chapter 2. Okay, so this chapter consists of three things. First one is method of collecting data. Second, sampling, what sampling is. And then third one is sampling error and non-sampling errors. Okay, first, let's think about what we have discussed in topic 1. So what we want to do is we have this data, and then we want to collect some information from this data. So we want to draw some conclusions, or we want to describe this data to get some information. So in order to do so, we use the tool that is what we call statistics. Okay, but our question in this topic is what the data, or what does the data come from? Where does basically the data come from, right? Where does the data come from is our question. So how can we find the data? Okay, how it is gathered? How is it gathered? How do we ensure it's accurate? Is the data you have reliable data? Is it representative of the population? Those kind of questions we are gonna answer this in this topic. And this topic is actually quite important topic, but we are not gonna emphasize too much about this collecting the data part. Because this course is about statistics. We assume somehow we have a data, and then we use this data to do some analysis. So our focus is the analysis itself instead of collection of the data. So there are some courses in maybe in economics course, or in statistics course, or in like sociology, or in some other multidisciplinary social science or data science. There is a course about the collecting data or survey design, something like this. So you may want to take those kind of courses to know more about this collecting data part. Okay. So method of collecting data. How to collect data? There are three popular methods to collect data. First one is direct observation. So you just sit in front of the maybe convenience store, and then look at how many people enter into convenience store. So for example, like number of customers entering a bank per hour, you can basically sitting down in front of the or inside of the bank, and you can see how many people get into this bank or not, right? So you can basically count those numbers by yourself with direct observation, right? Or experiment. You can do some experiment. For example, you go to some developing countries and you do some experiment. For example, you basically give them new textbooks, and whether their test scores will go up or not. Those kind of experiments you can do. Of course, there are many other different experiments you can do, and you can collect the data. And then surveys. Survey may be the most popular method to collect data. So you draw a sample and you ask questions. You need to design the survey, all right, and then you do this survey to collect the data. So survey may be the most popular method to collect data. Okay, so let's talk about survey a little bit more. So a survey solicits information from people. So for example, like Gallup polls, pre-election polls, or marketing surveys. There is so many interesting surveys in Korea with in economics. But that is something we call, for example, like CLIPS. CLIPS is a 한국 노동 패널, something like this. 한국 노동 패널. So this is a panel survey. Panel survey means like you do the same survey every year for the with the same people, same respondent. So you ask their work decision, work hours, wage, all those kind of things. So that is 한국 노동 패널, and it's called CLIPS. This is done by 노동연구원. And many people use the data which is called GOMS. I think it's I forgot the exact name of this GOMS. GOMS is about the 대졸자 about the college graduate. Sorry, 대졸자 is in Korean. It's about college graduate, and they survey basically college graduate, recent college graduate, and their behaviors. Okay, so this is COMS, and also what people call 재정 패널. 재정 패널. 재정 패널 is done by 조세재정연구원. 조세재정연구원 looks like some tax agency, but it's actually economics government think tank. So 조세재정연구원, 한국조세재정연구원, KPF, KIPF, I think KIPF. They do this 재정 panel. It's about people's like consumption, or their how they accrue their assets, their financial assets, their other assets. Those kind of things are in this 재정 panel. So they are very popular survey. Also in the US, maybe the most popular survey is American Community Survey, ACS, American Community Survey, and this survey actually is based on the census. Right? You know what census is? 인구조사 census, right? So population census. So they are based on population census, but they only count for population census. They basically survey everybody in the population, but in this American Community Survey, they survey only like 1% of the U.S. population, and they ask like wage, income, like social what is it? I forgot the name. Social security, insurance, those kind of things. Like a lot of different informations are in American Community Survey. You may want to find these kind of data to write down some kind of papers, such as like a 논문, right? And maybe you can submit to ACE. It's 경제대학 논문 공모전, something like this, right? So you may want to look at those kind of data and try to find some interesting research questions, and you can do some, analysis, statistical analysis to write some paper, okay, research paper. Anyway, these are all surveys. Surveys are very interesting, and surveys are very useful. And the key thing about this doing survey is response rate. So if you do survey, and if you if you meet some people and you ask these kind of survey, but some people actually answer those questions, but some people don't, right? And the important thing is response rate. Okay, so response rate is a key survey parameter. And surveys may be administered in many different ways. Personal interview can be a survey. Telephone interview can be a survey. Internet interview can be a survey. Self-administered questionnaire is also one possible way of the survey. There is also what we these days many people use is Google form, right? Google form is it's very popular survey these days. What people use Google form, and maybe Naver has something similar. Google form, those kind of things. Okay, this is an easy way to do a survey. And another thing important for a survey is questionnaire design, quick questionnaire design. So we need to keep the questionnaire as short as possible. So short question. So question statement is so long that people are easily distracted, and they can be easily bored. So you have to make sure the questionnaire is as short as possible, and ask short, simple, worded questions. So you have to be clear and simple questions, right? Not just the questionnaire, whole questionnaire, the survey, sheet. survey 종이 is not it should be very short, but also the question itself, each question should be short as well, right? And start with some demographic questions like age, gender, something like this, or like email, or something like this, or your where do you live, address, something like this, those kind of easy things, right? So when you start, making survey questions, just start with something people can easily answer. Then the people will think, oh, this questionnaire, this survey is not that difficult, and then you can gradually ask something more deep. Okay, and you can use some dichotomous, this binary, right? Binary questions like yes or no questions or multiple choice questions. They are relatively easy to answer for as a survey respondent. They can easily answer multiple choice questions or dichotomous questions. So you should use those questions more often. And for those like open-ended questions like 주관식, right? 주관식. Actually, 주관식 is not that great. So 주관식, you have to use 주관식 very cautiously. You don't want to use too many 주관식 questions, right? Open-ended questions. And avoid using leading questions. Like leading question is what in Korean 유도신문, right? 유도신문, something like a 유도신문, like a 질문. If you create some questions, but the question actually let the survey respondent to think a particular answer. That is very bad question, right? So you have to make questions that doesn't have a leading. That does not lead some particular answer that you want to listen to, right? And you should pre-test the questionnaire on a small number of people. So you have to test run those survey questionnaires. And think about the way you intend to use the collected data when preparing the questionnaire. Actually, this is very important question. Like once you get the survey answers, then how you will use these questions, or whether you will analyze these question answers with some statistical techniques, how you will model this statistical, for example, like linear regression model, how you will model this, those kind of things. You have to think about it. What kind of graphical techniques you want to use this with these survey questions, then and what kind of things you want to show to people, then those kind of things you have to keep in mind when you design the survey. Actually, this kind of thing happen quite often, even for the professional economist. I have seen many economists had some trouble after they got these survey answers, and then those survey answers are not exactly what they wanted to have. Actually, they kind of designed their survey questions by mistake. They designed kind of little bit in a wrong way, so that they cannot do whatever they wanted to do before they started this survey. 한국말로 한번 서베이 만들기 전에 이 서베이 갖고 질문 대답을 받았을 때 이 대답을 가지고 어떤 분석을 할 것인지, 뭐 그래프를 만들 것인지, 어떤 걸 보여주고 싶은지 그런 걸 생각하고 디자인하지 않으면 나중에 서베이 앤서를 받았는데, 답을 받았는데 이 서베이 답들이 이건 정말 쓸 수 없는 내가 원하던 게 안 나오는구나, 이런 상황이 정말 실제로 많이 벌어지고, 실제로 저는 제가 외국에서 교수할 때도 그렇고 한국에서 교수하면서 만났던 교수님들 사이에서도 이런 얘기, 이거 퀘스천 서베이 디자인 잘못했다, 그래서 원하는 답을 얻지 못했다. 뭔가 예를 들면 멀티플 초이스 퀘스천을 만들었는데 거기에 있는 초이스들을 잘못 서베이해갖고 사람들이 이거 참 오해해서 뭐 이런 식으로 답을 했다, 아니면은 이런 식으로 질문했어야 되는데 그렇지 않았다, 그런 경우 정말 많습니다. 그래서 퀘스천을 할 때 굉장히 조심스럽게 해야 되고, it's very useful to run the test run of this survey, so that you can know, once you get those like test run result, then you have better idea, more clearer idea about what you wanted to do with this survey, so you can revise the survey questions. Okay, so that's why these two things are very, very super important. Okay, super important things. It's not super important for this course, but it's super important for your research later. When you want to do research with your survey, this is very, very important. Okay, let's move on. Now we are moving on to sampling. What sampling is. So when we talk about statistical inference basically what we want to do with statistical inference is to draw a conclusion, right? And about some feature of the population based on a sample. And this sample is very important. We have to have a good sample, representative sample about the population so that we can draw a valid conclusion, right? So sampling is what? Sampling is basically selecting a subset of a whole population. There is a whole population, and you have to draw people from this population to make the sample, right? Basically, your selection process of the population units, right? And sampling is often done for reasons of cost. 돈 죄송합니다. 갑자기 한국말 나왔어요. 돈 하니 갑자기 너무 흥분한 것 같아요. 돈이 많이 들어요. Sampling cost a lot, right? Sometimes sampling costs a lot. So sampling requires some money, a budget. So you have to be careful about how to sample your population, right? So if you think about you want to sample 100 million is 1억, 100 million TV viewers, that's impossible, and that will cost like a huge amount of money. Even if like you are in China, for example, you have like a 1400 million, 1.4 billion people, and collecting like a 100 million people TV viewers, that takes a lot of time and a lot of money. So instead of having this 1 million or 10 million, 100 million, we want to have only 1,000 television viewers, right? And that will cost much less. And you can think about very silly example of the crash test of the cars, right? Every automobile companies basically do crash test, like Hyundai do crash test on their Genesis models. They cannot do this crash test for every single car they produce, right? That's impossible. 차를 만드는데 그 차를 하나씩 다 부딪혀서 충돌 테스트를 하면은 아무 차도 만들어져서 남아있는 게 없을 거잖아요. 샘플을 그래서 컬렉트를 하는 거죠, 그렇죠? So that's why we collect sample, right? That's why we collect sample. And this sample population, right? You draw this sample from population, and those target population must be similar or must be the same, right? Technically, they must be the same, and target population and sample population must be very, very similar. Otherwise, your conclusion based on the sample is basically useless, right? And then, in order to have a good sample, you have to have a sampling plan. Sampling is just a method or a procedure for specifying how a sample will be taken from a population. There are 3 different types of sampling method. One is a simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, cluster sampling, right? So we will talk about these 3 things in the next slide. So first, simple random sample. Simple random sample is really just simple random sample. You have 50 million people in Korea, then you may pick every third person you meet. Okay, and then that is basically simple random sampling, right? You don't have any criteria. You don't have any groups. You just randomly pick just people from population. That's a simple random sample. Okay, so simple random sample is a sample selected in such a way that every possible sample of the same size is equally likely. So everybody in the sample is equally likely. Every set of the sample is equally likely. Drawing 3 names from a hat containing all the names of the students in the class is an example of a simple random sample. Any group of 3 names is as equally likely as picking any other group of 3 names. Okay, that is one simple example of simple random sample. Okay, and the next thing is stratified random sample. Basically, you make a strata, right? Stratum. You make strata or a stratum, right? So strata is what? Basically, first strata is gender. That means you have a male group and female group, and among these group, you want to make another strata. So female, you make another strata. Strata 2 is age less than 20 years old, 20 to 30, 31 to 40, 41 to 50, 51 to 60, and 60. And then this group 20 to 30, first female, and then 20 to 30, you make another 4 strata, professional, clerical, blue collar, and other occupation. And then you choose this group, for example, female, 20 to 30 clerical workers. And then among this in this group you pick randomly people to select sample. So each strata. So here, how many strata here? 2 groups here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups here. 4 groups here. 2 times 6 times 4 is 48 groups, and within each group, among those 48, you randomly pick people, and that is a strata random sample. Okay? 한국말로 한번 할까요? stratified random sample이라는 거는 그룹을 만들어서 그 그룹 안에서 랜덤 샘플을 하는 겁니다. 그래서 그룹 안에서는 서로 다 같은 퀄리티가 아니라 같은 캐릭터리스틱을 가진 사람들이 있거든요. 같은 특징을 가진 사람들이니까 거기서는 랜덤하게 뽑는 겁니다. 그래서 같은 어떤 특정 어떤 캐릭터리스틱을 가진 그룹이 꼭 뽑힐 수 있도록, 그렇죠? 만약에 어떻게 랜덤하게 전체에서 뽑았을 때는 우연하게 남자만 쫙 뽑힐 수도 있잖아요. 그런 걸 방지하기 위해서 남자 어느 정도, 여자 어느 정도, 그 다음에 20대 어느 정도, 30대 어느 정도 이렇게 뽑기 위해서 남자 20대 프로페셔널에서 몇 명 뽑고, 남자 30대 뭐 클러리카에서 몇 명 뽑고, 이런 식으로 모든 그룹에 대해서 조금씩 뽑는 거죠. So we are basically collecting a sample from every possible groups based on those like stratas, those classifications, right? So male, female, age, occupation. Among those like classification groups, we basically collect some people, so that we don't miss any possible characteristic of the population, right? So after we do stratified population, then we do stratification of the population. We can do simple random sampling to get the complete sample. That is a stratified random sampling. Okay. Next thing is the cluster sampling. What cluster sampling means? Basically, we randomly select cluster. Okay, we choose cluster. Okay, so there are, for example, like 100 high schools in Korea. Then you choose not those like a high school student at random. Rather, you choose schools at random. Okay, so for example, you choose 서울고등학교 randomly choose like there are 100 high school and you random pick one high school, then that is maybe 서울고등학교, and then you pick another one, then that could be 부산고등학교, something like this. And then among these groups, basically you survey everybody in this sample. Or you can randomly choose people in each cluster to do random sampling, right? Those kind of things, basically cluster sample. But the key point here is you randomly sample a group or clusters, right? That is basically cluster sampling. Okay. Next thing is sample size. Okay, sample size. Sample size is also important. If the sample size is large, then of course the result, your analysis result, you are describing the population will be more and more accurate and precise. But sample size will makes you cost more. So you have to choose a good sample size, appropriate sample size, and we will talk about this sample size in maybe topic 10. 9 or 10 or 10. Around topic 10 we will talk about, or 9, I don't know, maybe topic 9, 10, 11. Among those topics we will talk about how to choose the sample size to do precise, reliable statistical inference. Okay, so we will talk about this sample size a little bit later in this course. Okay, and then what else? So far we have talked about the method of collecting data. For example, like a survey, right? Direct observation, experiment. And then we talk about the sampling method, what sampling is, and sampling method, simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, and cluster random sampling. And then we talk about sample size. Now what we haven't talked about yet is the error. We do sampling, then there is an error, right? Because we are not using whole population for our analysis. Instead of whole population, we are using just a part of the population. So there could be an error. Okay, so we will talk about the error first. So sampling and non-sampling error. So there is a sampling error, and non-sampling errors. Sampling errors and non-sampling errors. Okay, There are two major types of errors. Sampling error is what? Sampling error is a simple thing. Why is it simple? It's just because sample and the population are different. So different, right? Sample and population are different. 여러분이 추출하는 샘플하고 표본하고 여러분이 생각하고 있는 그 population은 다르잖아요. 같을 수가 없죠. population은 훨씬 더 많은 사람을 갖고 있으니까. 이 차이에서 오는 에러입니다. So sampling error is basically the difference between the sample and the population. That exists only because of the observations that happen to be selected for the sample. Even if you do random sampling, maybe some male is sampled a little bit more than female, and that does not represent the population proportion of male. Then that is basically the sampling error. It's not just because of you choose the people. It's just because of random sampling. Randomly give those kind of characteristics on the sample, right? So that is basically the sampling error. As you increase the sample size, this sampling error will decrease, right? That's the sampling error. Next one is the non-sampling error. Non-sampling error is actually a serious thing. You have to be careful about this non-sampling error. Okay, and then basically this non-sampling error is because of the mistakes made in the acquisition of the data, or whether the sample observation is intentionally selected or improperly selected. These type of non-sampling errors are errors in data acquisition, non-response errors, and selection bias. By the way, what I want to mention is if you look at later, if you look at the previous midterms, then I kind of like to ask you definition. So in midterm, for example, definition questions. This topic 4 is very good to ask. Very good for me to ask you definition questions. There are a lot of terms, so you may want to remember those terms. And these 3 terms are all maybe very interesting things you want to add and you want to remember. Also, sampling error, non-sampling error is also interesting definition you may want to remember. So what is the errors in data acquisition? Data acquisition errors arises from the recording of incorrect responses. For example, you have wrong measurement. For example, you want to collect data on the people's height, but somehow you bring some wrong wrong measurement, right? Then that makes basically you have a wrong sample, right? Wrong data. That is basically errors in data acquisition. And then second is non-response errors, because some members of the sample actually does not respond, right? And then these sample observations may not be representative of the target population. So that is a non-response errors. And next one is a selection bias. Selection bias is somehow your sampling plan is wrong, so that you don't correctly or appropriately include some part of possible groups that should have been included in your sample, right? So that is the difference. That is the selection bias. So we have to figure out the difference between non-response error and selection bias. Non-response error is this: you want to collect people, for example, height. Somehow, like shorter people don't answer these questions. Okay, it's not because of you. You ask all those questions, but those people who are short doesn't want to answer the question. And then that is a non-response error. But somehow, as a researcher, you didn't want to ask questions to those short people. Then that is a selection bias. Okay, so that is the difference. How the bias is made, how the error is made, is basically based on the sample, the respondent side, or the researcher side. That is basically the difference between non-response error and the selection bias. Okay, so you have to make sure how these two things are different. Okay, so these are the sampling errors. So in this topic 4, there are many different terms and definitions. So you have to make sure these definitions are clearly on your head. So if you don't have, if you couldn't understand some of those concepts, please feel free to let me know. Please email me if you have any questions. Just please do not hesitate to contact me. My email. You can also use. Some people already started using iCampus Messenger. So email, message me. So I will be happy to answer you any of those questions. Okay. So this is topic four, and we will move on to topic 5 in the next lecture.